Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice for radio, so today we're going to be looking at the rotation. We've been looking at the rotation for a few days now. We are looking through every set which is being rotated out, and we are taking a good in-depth look at all of these cards that are leaving so that you guys are completely prepared for the coming rotation. Today, it is the turn of Steam Siege, or as a lot of people probably think of it, that set what had Volcanion in. And we will be using the usual three categories here: Fringe Plays, You Used to Be Cool, and Big Losses. And this is a set that has a couple of losses which are going to be a little bit sad. So starting off with Fringe Plays then, Talonflame Break. Talonflame Break was actually a deck of its own for a while. It shouldn't surprise you that, like everything else, I made a video about this. It works really nicely with counter energy, doing 150 for 2 energy. That's quite nice. It was actually one of the few decks that use super boost energy. You've obviously got the Talonflame, which you can put down as your active Pokemon at the beginning of the game. More on that in a moment. And this really just gave a little bit of extra HP. It gave you some more HP, it gave you a decent attack with counter energy. It has seen some play, but it has very much been a fringe play. We're losing Galvantula. Now, Steam Siege really was the set that gave us these dual-type Pokemon, and Galvantula was one of the very best that we had. It attacked for just 1 colourless energy, and it did 30 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon, but it actually let you hit weakness and resistance on the bench. It had a built-in wide lens. First of all, it was really good for the Rainbow Force Xerneas, because that needed lots of different types of Pokemon out. Yay! But secondly, this was back when everyone was playing Shaman. This 2-hit KO Shaman on the bench for 1 energy. I mean, it could also be used against Night March to take out 2 Joltics, for instance, but it was just really good for taking out Shamans. It saw a bit of play, not even just in the Xerneas decks, it actually saw a fair bit of play. Speaking of these dual-type Pokemon, we actually are also losing Bisharp. Again, 1 colourless energy. Retaliate, 30 damage. If you had a Pokemon KO'd the previous turn, it does 90. Problem is that with a Choice Band, it wouldn't actually KO a Gardevoir, because as much as Gardevoir was weak to the metal part, it was resistant to the darkness part. Little bit sad, and that's why it was never as good as it should be. And we're also missing Hawlucha. Nice little ability, which is just a repel. Makes your opponent switch their active. Saw a bit of play in Mega Gardevoir decks just because they needed to get basic Pokemon on the bench every turn and then discard them all. So it was nice to have something like this that could go on the bench and give you a nice little advantage. But it never saw a huge amount of play. Pokemon that used to be cool, let's start off with Yanmega and Yanmega Break. It literally won the World Championships. Yeah, it was in Seniors. Hey Jesper, he doesn't watch these videos, I don't think. But it was pretty nice. The ability says that if you've got exactly 4 cards in hand, you attack for free. And then you can do 120 if your opponent's got a tool attached, or you can just do a straight 100, but the problem is it doesn't hit for weakness. But it also goes through other effects, so it was quite nice in that regard. It won Seniors World Championships. It needs to have a bit of a mention. Didn't see much play outside of that. Yveltal Break. Did see a little bit of play here and there. For a short period of time, it was a popular tech with Yveltal decks, but it really was largely just for the extra HP. 120 damage plus 30 to each of the bench Pokemon that has any damage counters on it is nice, but it was too expensive. It was largely just to give a little bit of extra bulk. We are losing Magearna EX. Now, Magearna was used for a couple of reasons. Towards later life, it was just used as a Gardevoir counter, because for a metal double colourless, it did just that. But it was actually played with Rayquaza for a while, and the theory was that the ability made it immune to other effects of attacks. So something like a Promo Jirachi, for instance, would come around and wouldn't be able to discard the energy while getting immunity. It was quite popular in metal decks and for a while in Rayquaza decks. We're also losing Mega Gardevoir EX. I mentioned this a minute ago, but let's give it its own little point in the video. Quite frankly, it was a good card. What you did was fill up the bench and then get rid of them all while doing more damage. Plus, you were hitting for weakness against Fairy and Psychic weak Pokemon, which was nice. And you had Mega Turbo or Dimension Valley, so you could use this in a single turn. And then you would go nuts with cards like Shaymin EX and Hooper EX and Dragonite EX. And it was really fast and really consistent. And it was a deck that I actually liked a lot. Did I say Dragonite GX? I clearly meant Dragonite EX. There we go. So, we're also losing Klefki. Klefki was a favourite in decks like Vespiquen. It basically had two purposes. Firstly, it was a tool that for one turn would give you immunity against Mega Pokemon, and when Megas like Gardevoir and Rayquaza were big, it saw a fair amount of play. But in decks like Vespiquen, it was just an easy Pokemon to get in the discard. People would attach it to an Unown, just so you could then discard both of them in one go. In terms of the big losses, we need to really start with Volcanion and Volcanion EX. This was the Volcanion set, and for a long time, Volcanion was one of the best decks in the format. You accelerate energy with Baby Volcanion. Hey Nick, you use Steam Up to do extra damage on basic fire Pokemon with the EX, and you can do big damage with the EX. It's been thoroughly outclassed by Ho-Oh-Kiawe as the format's gone along, but it was a really good deck for a very long time. We are losing Cobalion, which is really sad, right? Because Cobalion is the best counter-energy metal Pokemon we've got. 30 base damage and an extra 30 for each prize card your opponent has taken? Sign me up. It's really nice. You can even use Mew to copy it and make it Psychic while having the same attack. Counter-energy decks are not sad that it's gone. We are losing Xerneas Break. Xerneas Break has for a while been its own actual deck, because you do 20 damage for each energy that you've got in play. So you use Geomancy to get energy in play, you use double colorless energy, you use Max Elixir, and then if you've got enough energy on the field, you can basically one-hit KO absolutely anything. It is a really, really good card, and it was for quite a long time a really good deck. It's seen play, it's seen success. We've seen it in World Championship finals. It's a good deck. Well, it was a good deck, it's just rotated out. And as we mentioned before, we're losing Talonflame. This is sad. Talonflame has been used many a time. It was used with Greninja. It's been used as its own deck. I used it with Garchomp. And it was just a nice setup for slower decks. You could put it down as your active at the beginning of the game, and it had free retreat. And for one colorless energy, it did 40 damage and search for any two cards. Yeah, most of the time your opponent would end you, but if they didn't, you had the exact cards you wanted. If they did, you still started the turn with a new hand of 6 cards, so it wasn't exactly the worst thing ever. I really liked Talonflame, and there's a bunch of decks in the future that are going to want to play it, but not be able to, because it's gone. Now, in terms of the trainers, we're not actually losing very much. We are losing Captivating Pokepuff, which allows you to bench your opponent's Pokemon for them. And people have tried this with Zoroark, because you do more damage based on your opponent's bench. And people have tried it with Lucario, because you do more damage based on how many Pokemon fewer than your opponent you have. And it's just never been any good. No one's ever got it working, which is a little bit sad. We're losing Greedy Dice, another card that we've never really got working, although Jirachi Prism Star is a bit of a spiritual successor. Check out my video on that if you so wish. And essentially, if you draw it out your prize cards, flip a coin. If heads, you take an extra prize. Clearly, this is something you need to play around with Guzzlord, but honestly, it's just never quite been good enough. No one's ever really got it working. Sad face. One card which saw a lot of play initially and really dropped off the map, Ninja Boy. People used Ninja Boy in Vileplume decks with stuff like Jolteon and Glaceon to essentially try and block any other Pokemon from attacking. And it's good for switching your active for another active. And especially with Tapu Lele in the format, where you can search it out whenever, there's a lot of potential here. It just never lived up to it. Saw a bit of play at the beginning, dropped off the map. Speaking of which, we're losing Pokemon Ranger. which just stops effects of attacks. It was really, really nice against stuff like Jolteon and Glaceon, and for a while, we all put one in our deck. It was really nice against Seismitoad, but the reality is, after a while, it just stopped seeing any play whatsoever. Not necessarily because it's a bad card, but people just didn't need it anymore. We stopped using Pokemon that had an effect on the player or his or her Pokemon. And probably the biggest loss in the entire set, we're losing Special Charge. Special Charge is huge. It's how we get our special energy back. Energy like Strong Energy, which admittedly is rotating, but double colorless energy. The good news is, probably the best one after rotation initially is going to be Beast Energy, and that goes to the Lost Zone anyway, being a Prism Star card. But some decks like double colorless, and some decks like Counter Energy, and you can't get them back anymore. Not with an item card anyway. The only other option we had was Puzzle of Time, but as talked about in a previous video, that's rotating as well. Special Energy, ladies and gentlemen, not easy to recover nowadays. So that is all of the cards that you need to know about that are rotating from Steam Siege. Now you know. We've only got one video left, that is Evolutions/promo cards, and then you are going to be 100% completely up to date on all rotation-focused malarkey. So there we go. Now you know. As always, ladies and gentlemen, do make sure that you tell me down below which one card from Steam Siege you are going to miss more than any other, and tell me your thoughts on the rotation in general. But as always, make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and so on, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do just that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.